This episode is brought to you by Our Insurance Guy, a local family-owned insurance agency. Eric and his wife Christina are passionate about focusing on the needs of homeowners, farmers, and business owners in the London region. Focusing on service, putting empathy and trust back into insurance. Contact Eric and Christina at OurInsuranceGuy.ca for your no-obligation quote today. Alrighty, Peter. We are joined, and I said this earlier, and I feel like I am in the company of broadcasting and journalism royalty here in the city. I don't know what the young kid over here is doing with the two people who, frankly, have influenced pretty much my entire journalism and broadcast career. The Godfather, as we all know, him and I have been around for a day or two, and this gentleman in between us is the person who gave me inspiration when I was walking into Fanshawe College. It is always a saying when you're in the broadcast center, when the doors open and Jim Van Horne comes through, the hands go to the side. It's a beautiful day in the news business.
And who is it that has more fun than us? I'm telling you.
Yeah, exactly.
Pete, we've been able to dodge real work for this long. Hoping we can do it for a little longer.
It's
sure amazing to be with you guys. Yes, indeed.
And we've had some fun doing this, Ryan and I. We've talked to people in Korea, in Spain, and in Denmark, let alone the local people like Mike Stubbs, your partner on the night's broadcast.
Honestly, this is making the best of the pandemic life.
Yeah, there you go. And what else can you do?
What better things to do than sit in your basement and talk sports, right?
Yeah, and talk about the OHL. That's what we're going to talk about today, this time.
Now, Jim, obviously, Pete and I and you, and we've kind of been talking about this for a while. Pete and I, the first episode of our podcast, I think we're in about a dozen now. The first thing we did was Pete and I, surprise, talked about junior hockey and where things were sitting at the time. Peter, I believe at the time you said, I get where they're going. Let's just scrap it, move on, and wait for September. Evidently, that's what's going to happen this week. The OHL announcing, that the season, the return to play that they were going to try for, wasn't going to happen. First things first, Jim, I'm going to go to you on this. Were you surprised that it got to this, or was it kind of an inevitable situation that the OHL had to make this decision?
No, not surprised with that last little twist. It sounds like they had something worked out, some small version of a season, almost right at the 11th hour. It fell apart with the latest testing and COVID numbers. So, I agree with Pete. It's probably for the best. Certainly, it was nerve-wracking for a while. And back in, what was it, November, it was going to be the league get going without any body contact. This is the kind of mentality that they had looking at it. It was kind of.
I can imagine you two gentlemen being a little bit besmirched by the whole idea of junior hockey, but no body contact.
Yeah, it sort of. This is such a great Canadian institution woven into the fabric of our country, and that it doesn't happen in Toronto. I mean, those in Toronto, it seems like, they don't have a great understanding of exactly where this league is in the hearts and minds of the true Canadian and all these 60 CHL markets, not many of them in big cities, Pete?
No, that's right.
And it is kind of this... it's like sports version of Tim Hortons, the way this CHL binds the country together. I mean, we all have these teams in these, somewhat smaller markets or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You don't get the feeling that it's quite understood the importance of it in the halls.
I was reading something the other day. Sorry to interrupt, Jimmy.
No, not at all.
To back up what you say. Of the 17 Ontario markets in the OHL, 15 of them, the OHL teams, are the biggest attraction there is in town. And from the economic standpoint, the OHL creates 330 full-time jobs and about 1,800 part-time jobs. So it's big in rural Ontario, if you would, it's really big.
Well, we get exposed to London and Kitchener and the heart of it, right? And how many and you're right. So many the jobs, but how many charity campaigns are kicked off with a ceremonial puck drop in front of 9,000 at Budweiser Gardens? How many hospital visits are made by kids in the league? And the way that it all begins for their careers and the investment they've made since they were so young. This is not an easy career, but education packages. It doesn't have to be star in the National Hockey League. You can turn this into a career in Europe, as you guys have found out, or in terms of just the education package that's offered. There's so many aspects that are crucial. I feel so bad for the players. Look, I know
I really do. It's terrible.
This is life and death. We know what's going on, but it just goes to show you how far-reaching the impact is. You feel bad for so many. Yeah,
you do. You really and truly do. But would it be fair to say everyone in the world has been affected by someone by this COVID-19, this pandemic? Everyone in the world has felt its effect. And I feel sorry for the kids that, like a couple of kids that come to mind, Billy Moskal from the London Knights and Dunkley from the Knights. Where are they going to go? I mean, I think Moskal's got a contract, but I don't know about Dunkley. But that situation just adds to the woe, if you would.
You're absolutely right. And look, far worse is going on in terms of health and people who have lost those and been ill and who are still dealing with the effects. But and go down even further to a guy like Logan Mayu, who had to go find a place to play in the world now, and in his draft year, or Stuart Roloffs, who missed that sort of crucial year of exposure. And the way the Knights do things, they make sure that guys are ready. And a guy like Roloffs, I have full confidence that he could have jumped into the third or fourth round of the NHL draft and with exposure and a good year. And so, he's now not being seen by the scouts and by the NHL employers of the future. I mean, I think he'll still get a shot. And then it goes even further. The OHL draft, what are the OHL teams going to do? The 15-year-olds haven't been exposed to things like the OHL Cup or the Wendy Dufton tournament, all those things. And now they're going to have to draft. I think they're going to have a draft in June. The OHL teams. But
how do they know what's out there?
How do they know? It's going to be an interesting draft, isn't it?
So would this be the year where we'll all be surprised that he was still there in the fourth round, Jim? For those, it's a small inside joke. I'll let the cat out of the bag a little bit. I've had the pleasure of OHL priority selection day. Pretty much every league or every team across the league, I know in Ontario anyway, will do a draft day kind of gathering of their media, and the Knights are no different. They kind of gather various areas of the arena depending on what's going on. And every year Pete and I would go down, and Pete would call me usually the week before and say, "You're coming down on Saturday, right?" Yeah, okay, I'll grab the camera, I'll be down there, and Jim would be down there, getting things ready. And there were, we'd like everybody sitting on the OHL's website, watch the first round, and then you'd sit and watch the tick away as they appear on the computer screen. And then it's usually after the fifth round. Well, the fifth round, everybody takes a break. Usually that's when a representative of the team comes out. And usually around mid-second to third round, Jim always, I use like the encyclopedia of where things are going to situate.
Yeah, that's right.
And periodically Jim would say, all right, based on these various lists, this is where this guy might go. This is where, especially the local guys. And then around the third or fourth round, we'd start going with, okay, who's the guy who's dropped? He's dropped for whatever reason. Yeah. And then if the Knights take a certain guy, which one's going to be the one who we couldn't believe was still there at that point? Josh DeFarius was the year.
We had him first round. We got him in the 8th, but he was first round on our list.
He was a first round.
That's the fun of it, right? A little behind. Yeah. and we miss it. We miss it. That
sure.
gathering, all the BS stories, and the kidding each other, and I know, don't you just miss it? It's
That's what makes this job fun.
honestly,
I didn't know
yeah.
what to do with myself the first Saturday in April this year. I remember looking at the calendar. I think it was the Friday, and went, all right, I'm confused. Tomorrow's supposed to be the day where Pete calls me and tells me to come to the rink.
But in all seriousness, you mentioned how many. I'm looking at the NHL draft coming up, and
It's in July,
last few years. And if fans want a tip, this Wendy Dufton tournament, when it gets back and running, usually on Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, you can. I think back to going to see that fantastic Don Mills Flyers team with Shane Wright, and I think they lose? Did they lose one game all year? I think it maybe in overtime.
I think it was like the OHL Cup in overtime or something like that.
Yeah.
This Wendy Dufton tournament, you can walk in and see you can see most of the first 3 rounds of the NHL draft 2 years away. You can walk in and see them for free. And and these guys are really good even then, right? And so exactly. It's so fun to to celebrate our system that we've created, hockey in Canada. It's just so Canadian. It's Canadian Thanksgiving, and it's it's still minor hockey, and yet you can see these. I remember the first time seeing Shane Wright, and it's like, whoa. And you realize, and you heard, okay, this guy's not even of age. He's like 1 year younger, and he's dominating. They dominated that tournament. And then, to talk to him after, the maturity, and now 3 years later, everybody's waiting for him in the National Hockey League, and he will be as good as advertised. And it's a great slice of Canadiana.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it is missed. At least it is from this corner. Anyhow, I do miss all of the things that we went through. But, however, a brighter day is blooming.
And it'll be interesting to see how things are handled on that front, because as we talk about, when there's been so much conversation about the various, it becomes a narrative sort of thing of who gets the worst of the situation in this, especially with the OHL cancellation for the year. And, we look at how things happened with Quebec. They started, they stopped, they started, they stopped. The Western Hockey League tried their version of a bubble. They played, but then they didn't get a playoff in. We almost see 3 different results across the 3 major junior, entities across the country. Quebec tried to start on time, starts and stops. Western Hockey League gets a portion but doesn't finish, and then the OHL just doesn't at all. Obviously, different situations across the country, but as far as the player's perspective, there's that talk right now of who gets the worst of it. Is the kid who didn't get the exposure for his draft year?
Yeah.
Some would make the argument on the other side to say he didn't get the exposure now, but he'll still have time to play. Is it the overager who simply didn't get that final year to get exposure for an eventual contract? Or is it the 14, 15-year-old kids who are on the precipice of getting up to that OHL level? Is there a scenario of one's worse than the other, or is it all kind of sucks across the board?
I think it's unfortunately the kids who are at the end of the road, the end of the junior road, and don't have a place to play tomorrow. I think like a kid like a Dunkley, what's going to happen to him? Moskal, what's going to happen to him? Regula, we know about. He's gone. He's and McMichael, of course, he's a pro now and should be. And this is because he's too good for this league now. But it's the kids who are graduating this league and don't have a place to play who I feel sorry for.
Yeah, I don't. It's a difficult question. I'm with Pete. It's that the real talented players will always find a place. Like the guys like McMichael, you don't really worry about them. But like you say, guys like Moskal and Dunkley, who were on that sort of cusp of something, you don't know what. They had a chance to maybe get that opportunity, and where did it dry up? When are their university? They want to make sure they get their scholarships or their minor pro tryouts or what have you. It's the sort of tweeners, the guys in progress that you feel probably the worst for, like you say. Interestingly, those who went to the American League dominated. Like you're almost surprised. Like Jamie Drysdale is playing in the National League. He's obviously a high-end talent. He went to the American League and dominated. Connor McMichael's got 10 goals in the American League in 20-some games. Cole Perfetti is now getting a couple of points a game in Manitoba. Like, I'm a little anxious. I think down the road to the NHL teams are going to go, look at how the high-end talent dominates in the American League. Maybe that 19-year-old can go to the American League, and they're going to allow that. I'm not, I can see the NHL pushing for that.
Yes.
Whether they get it or not is problematic, but who knows what the lasting effects of some of the experiences are. But clearly what we're seeing from the high-end talent is that they're good. They're good players.
They're good.
And they can go to the American League like a Connor McMichael and just not be out of place at all at 19.
But who's going to make that decision, though, Jim?
It has to be collective bargaining, right? It has to be that collectively bargained. So
because you're talking about the kids that put people in the seats in the OHL, and if you take them out early, well, I don't know. I can't agree with that. I think the systems work fine right now. The systems work just great, and eventually the talent, as you said, will rise to the top and will be pros. Give them one more year in junior.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just nervous for the junior operators in what they're going to face. And as you say, those are the people that people buy tickets for. And it's so cool to see them finish out their junior careers at 19. And it oftentimes is how the junior teams build towards a championship, a Memorial Cup, like it's, when you have NHL teams swooping in and taking Ole Mata in 2014, and it's like, oh boy, that guy was going to be the cornerstone of a hosting the Memorial Cup, and on the ice, off the ice, it was going to be the whole, and then up he goes. I mean, that's, everybody understands the process and why they're there. They want to get to the National Hockey League, and yet the junior hockey operators are put in a terrible position if 19-year-olds are allowed to play in the American League. But I think it's what the pros may want. I hope they can resist. I'm with you, Pete. I hope they fight it off and allow it.
What's one year? One more year. It's not going to affect Connor McMichael's talent scale at all. He'll always be good. And
if you can play in the NHL and do it, fine.
If you can go up to the big show, that's
look at Victor Mete. Victor Mete, classic example. The Montreal Canadiens had to have him at 19.
Yep.
What is it? Three years later, he's on waivers. What was the point of that? Couldn't Victor Mete have used another year,
especially on the defenseman side of things? It's always been the narrative too of not that it takes them longer to develop, but eventually it
does though.
A couple years bigger, couple years stronger, a little more, a few more reps, especially in those situations, especially if it's a player who, is they're that number 3, number 4, number 2 at times guy. Give him a year to be number 1, especially on the junior side.
Exactly.
No, Pete's right. How many mistakes are made keeping a guy in junior an extra year? Not many. You can't say, boy, that last year junior really hurt him. I don't think that happens very often. But, early pro, I think, you can identify a lot of cases where they went up too early.
If the system that we have right now is working, and it is,
I think so.
It either goes to the NHL or back to the OHL. Why mess with it? Why mess with it and cause friction for the OHL owners? And, the Victor Mete situation, the kid goes up too early and doesn't work out. I don't know.
Well, I hope cooler heads prevail and there's a respect for the junior hockey operators from all sides. And, I give... the owners credit. They've been taking this league to a whole new level. There's, compared to Pete when you started covering the league, right?
No comparison. No
And,
comparison.
it's much more professional. It's
Yes,
much
it is.
better.
Yes, it is.
It takes better care of the kids, and they need the resources to be able to do that. And they need
Yeah,
the
they
ticket
do.
sales. They need the ticket sales of the 19-year-old primetime players to generate things like education packages, marketing and promotions for charities in the local communities. And I say it's going fine. Leave it alone. I think it's got even more growth potential. I don't know why it's not a little bit more like NCAA basketball in the States, where it gets all kinds of, it's its own product and its own successful entity. And, doesn't have to lead anywhere. You get a complete experience playing in the CHL. You get the education packages. You get the opportunities of growth. And, I think there's even more growth to come if truth be known with the 60 franchises.
No,
I think, excuse me, Ryan, I was just going to add to that. I think the greatest thing the OHL has done, or the CHL has done in recent years, has been the introduction of the education package. I think that was an absolute necessity because they were being rated by American college teams on the promise of a full scholarship. Hey, that's pretty hard to turn down because how many kids in reality are going to make it? How many kids in reality are going to make it? Not very many. But the introduction of the scholar, hell, there's a kid lived down the street from me for 3 years. He went to Waterloo and took electrical engineering or something along that line. And his mother said the first 3 years were on the OHL, because he played here. He played in St. Catharines. So anyway, it's been a godsend, I think, to the OHL, the introduction of the education package.
Without a doubt, they were dragged into it, kicking and screaming,
right.
maybe. But it's been their best thing, and they maybe could even do a better job marketing it and saying, "Look, scholarships right here." Interestingly, it's the NCAA still doesn't allow a young man to try the OHL, see how it goes. Usually, they have to wait a couple years before college age, and the NCAA still makes them ineligible for scholarships if you play in the OHL because you're tainted as
a pro.
I guess.
Even if
you
you
play with pros, they may slip you some gas money. I don't know what else. But
the part that bugs me is the fact that it's even if you suit up in an exhibition game.
Yeah, that's right.
Part of me is kind of like, if you wanted to compromise, I guess, if you want to go and go to a training camp, play in a exhibition game or two. It's like, if you really want to split the hairs and say, if you play I use football, for example. It's the transfer from talking to Chris Merchant on one of our recent episodes. Chris started with the University of Buffalo. Then, he played in, I think he said he was in 4 snaps in the NCAA. He's like, I appeared in 1 game. It was 4 snaps. Frankly, didn't make the world of difference. And then the next year moved on and decided to come to Western. He said that was my 1 year of eligibility. And I'm sitting there going, now, to my understanding, had been some talk of some changes sort of thing. But even to that aspect, if the kid wants to go to an OHL training camp and play in a couple exhibition games just to see what the level's like and so on and so forth, let him do the exhibition game. If he plays a year or plays it for the regular season, then sure, you can start, blending in and causing, changes sort of thing. That's a different story. You want to play in a couple exhibition games, let him dip the toe a little bit.
I agree. I totally agree with you, Ryan. I mean, there's no commitment there yet. So why bother?
Mind you, there's enough issues going on in the NCAA. I don't think their main concern is whether or not eligibility of OHL player, guys playing in the OHL.
Even a year, right? Even a year, if they a lot of guys don't play that much in their first year, if they want to test it out and see where they stand, and then after that year go,
I think the underlying thing is they're kids.
Exactly.
They haven't got time to make up their mind. They want to go out and test every situation and see what's here for me, and therefore they're kids, they're teenagers, they're youngsters. I mean, good God, let's not treat them like adults before they become adults.
Yeah. Well, the NCAA's got a lot of issues as well, and it's a tough job. But I think that would be a positive change for them.
Yeah. Yes, it would.
I will say this, that the cutting off of some of the Canadian pipeline and the Canadian scholarships, I think you've seen the growth in American hockey as a result. I think it's helped. The U.S. puts together under 18 Halenka teams, World Junior teams, great teams every year. Like it's a juggernaut if just on numbers alone. And the players are starting to really, get more of the opportunity. The American players are starting to get more of the opportunities at the NCAA level too. So that it's been good for U.S. hockey for sure.
Oh, that has. And correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Alec Regula make Team USA last year, the junior team, World Junior?
I think he was one of the last cuts.
He last cuts.
Was he? Okay.
Which
I was going to
shows
say
you how tough that is now.
Tough because they were pretty well all college kids, weren't they? College players,
Yeah. So
and they beat us in the final game.
Yes, they did. They had a good team. Again,
we did too. It was one of those things. It was a good game.
Over here waving the flag as
I'm waving the flag. I'm waving the flag. Where is it?
It's okay.
In my desk somewhere.
Absolutely allowed.
I think Mike Stubbs made a point on his radio show that when it comes to judging Canadian teams that were at the World Junior, let's not forget the last one, because they went through it pretty well and only allowed, I think, 7 goals or 6 or something like that in the entire tournament.
Yeah.
So, but the Americans got a couple of goals and away we went.
Get into a one-game situation, one game, anything could happen. The Canadians just one time, a little flat. That's the way it goes.
And give the Americans credit. They played well.
Oh yeah.
They knew they had to be at their best to beat us, and they did.
Yeah.
Zegras kid was pretty good.
Who?
That Zegras kid was pretty good.
He was good. He talked a good game and he backed it up.
And now he and Jamie Drysdale are on the same team.
Yeah. But any U.S. team, Canadian and U.S. hockey in about the same situation. Any given year, either one of them can win it. And it just depends on how it comes together. And the U.S. certainly came together. The year before, Canada really came together, beat Russia in that in the game in the final.
Beat them up.
Yeah. So it's a great rivalry. We'll just enjoy it.
Let me go back and use some experience. I can remember a man named Howie Meeker, who was the forerunner of Don Cherry, and that's how far back we go. He used to do the analysis. He said once, and I remember this vividly, if the United States, because in those days, hockey in the U.S. was Michigan, Minnesota, and New England.
Yeah.
That was it. He said, if the United States ever takes this game seriously, they can put an awful lot of pressure on the rest of the world. And guess what? Austin Matthews from Arizona, people that we've had, Johnny Carlson that played here from New Jersey, kids from all over the world, all over the place. And they started to take the game seriously, a la Mr. Meeker's suggestion. And now they are, as they are, Jimmy, you said it, and I agree with you. They are they're a world powerhouse. No question.
Mathematics, it's just you get the numbers and you get the right training. Back to the Herb Brooks and the Miracle on Ice in 1980. That led to, we did a piece, if you look at the OHL draft prior to 1980, trickle of Americans would come up. Ally Afraidy, Pat LaFontaine, maybe, the odd one. Then after 1980, the OHL team started drafting a lot more Americans, a lot more got into the game. The Miracle on Ice really gave the OHL a boost as well, and hockey in general. But all of a sudden it was cool to play hockey after Al Michaels said, "Do you believe in miracles?"
Do you know a hockey statement that has reverberated as much as that one has? Do you believe in miracles?
Yes.
Because they were playing the Russians.
Well, same point, we've made the joke a number of times, especially around Bud Gardens, that the Knights they have to rent out a banquet hall in order to facilitate American Thanksgiving because there's usually so many players. And that was kind of even part of the conversation, I'm sure, around the OHL's potential return is, you've got some kids who are from Plymouth, Michigan, and Rochester Hills, and so on and so forth. Not to mention, obviously, your import players, but these are kids that more than likely have gone home to the other side of the border, which is currently closed. So that plays into it as well, right?
Did the OHL ever say what they were going to do with the 3 American-based teams? They never did say.
There was a lot of rumor of potentially the 3 playing each other. One of the states. There was a lot of talk of whether or not they were going to take the 3 American teams and spread them out into kind of their closest, basically Canadian border city. Jim, did you hear anything of that?
I think that was. I didn't hear anything concrete. That seemed to make the most sense to me. Bring them over, and if they were going to do a 4-city bubble kind of a concept, then you could do that, and bring them over and have them isolate for however long they needed to. That seemed to be it was probably the sticking point through October, November, December, right? It was probably, what are we going to do with the 3, the US teams? So it was a problem, but don't have to worry about it now. It's done now. It looks like they're still going to try a tournament style exposure event in late June, sort of a top prospect tournament style, to give the exposure to some of the draft eligibles. So hopefully that'll give the kids a chance to get some eyeballs on their game.
Let's see them. I really feel sorry for the youngsters, but as I said, I feel sorry for the guys going out of this league that don't have a contract, and that.
The interesting thing for me, though, and this will go to this place that I used to work at, we will end up seeing a lot of those players who now know that there won't be an OHL season, especially for the overagers, that we'll see a lot of the university teams announcing their recruit commitments and that kind of thing. And because of the university package and the education package, we'll see a lot of those players taking advantage of, and even if it is a scenario, and I'm kind of, again, it's a devil's advocate scenario, they'd obviously love to be in front of 9,000 people on a Friday night at Budweiser Gardens. But at the same point, they can take that opportunity, especially if they're looking for that exposure level. They could turn around and go and play for, go play for Clark Singer at Western, or go and play at Waterloo Queens. It's that university level of hockey, especially when we were talking to Brett Welichka a while back. He took that chance he wanted a pro contract. It didn't come around the way he wanted to, so he goes to Carleton, plays for a couple years. Again, emulates essentially what we a lot of saw in his junior career, that he got a lot better every year, became a captain in Belleville. Then he goes to Carleton, improves a little bit more, plays with bigger, older players as well, becomes the captain there, then gets the pro opportunity sort of thing. So I think there might be that window aspect for maybe some positivity for those players to kind of say, if you didn't get the pro contract right now, you take that opportunity, because I'm sure there's university coaches across the country were calling, and the players weren't making a commitment for next year because they thought, well, maybe they might say, if this year's canceled, we'll grandfather in the extra year, or we'll say, eligibility didn't count for this year. I know the NCAA did that this year. If their players did play, the eligibility year didn't get, charged to them, sort of thing. Now that they kind of have a concrete answer of this year isn't happening, it doesn't look like there's going to be any tweaks or adjustments or changes or potentials for the overagers. Now they know exactly what the situation is for them, and we'll probably see a bunch of them make the move to play in the university level if they don't have that contract currently. But there's even some players now that as soon as the OHL said, that the season was going to be canceled, all of a sudden there were OHL players across the country, making the move to getting offers from AHL teams and some teams in the States and that kind of thing. I think those things are going to come out a lot here in the next month and a half, and I think
already seeing it, for sure, and good for them. You make the best of the chicken salad, out of the chicken feathers, and so you get on on board. These are great opportunities to have your education, great education. These are great schools, and to have it funded, mostly is fabulous opportunity. So why not?
What is? Sorry,
not
Jimmy.
great.
Is there a draft, an OHL draft, and when is it? Do you know when it is? Junior draft.
Yeah, they're talking about June sometime.
Haven't made it.
Haven't made the date yet, but I think it's June sometime. I think the Quebec League announced yesterday their date. I think it was late June for their Quebec League draft, and then they used to do a live event. I think they even did last year, but they do a live event that, or no, maybe they were online last year, but they love the show. But they do a separate American draft, I think, as well. So they announced that yesterday for late June. So I think the OHL will probably do the same.
Do the same thing.
Get the new the midget talent, and they've been affected as well, right? So
boy, how do you go about drafting kids that you haven't seen play? I don't know.
Yeah, I know, and this is how sophisticated the OHL scouting has become. I mean, they have to have a good book on the bantams.
Yes, they do.
They have to know, and these guys identify themselves on the high end. These high end players are well known by the OHL scouts. So, but I think you're going to see guys taken in the. This will be absolutely true this time, Ryan. A guy you'll see a guy taken in the 5th round, and he'll be a first round talent, and they won't believe he's available.
You can't believe he was there.
Can't believe he was there.
Oh well, and then the NHL draft have they decided when they're going to draft?
End of July.
End of July. Okay.
Yeah, because there was talk of potentially moving it, and there was the talk of whether or not they were going to July 23rd and 24th. There was talk of whether it was going to be 2 separate drafts, whether they would be a couple weeks apart. And I know we talked to a couple of scouts that said the scouting staffs were the ones who were least excited about the whole 2 drafts in a couple of weeks mentality, because they kind of said, but it takes them a vast majority of a year to get everything situated to the right way for a draft in one situation. To do one another 2 weeks afterwards would be absolutely crazy. But yeah, the QMJHL draft is 25th and 26th. Apparently, they're not doing the big hoopla this year, Jim.
No, they were the holdouts, and I love that, to make a live show of it. Tough to do in a pandemic. They gave it their best shot this year to try and get a live season. I think they're still going. Actually, there's some tournament format they got going. I think it's like 3 or 4 teams isolated, and it doesn't really resonate. But I would love those days, Pete, to return to the live draft show. It's too inexpensive and efficient online. But those were fun times when the OHL sort of emulated the NHL draft and had it at a live site.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun then.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun, and it was held at the old London Ice House once. I can remember that.
Yeah.
If you recall that.
That would be a broadcaster's dream, because usually we, especially with the amount of times when we would sit there and they go, all right, they make the announcement of their first round selection, and he was from, either somewhere in the States or, somewhere north of Toronto. And we'd be like, all right, so they drafted him at 10. He'll get in the car.
Yeah.
He'll be here around 2. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go for lunch.
I can remember when Bo Horvat was drafted. I was just about to say
Bo Horvat was the easiest one, because he was there in 15 minutes.
He was there in 15, 20 minutes. And I found out what Bo was the short form for. Bowie, as in Bowie Q, and the former baseball commissioner.
I did not know that.
He told me that himself. Bowie was his first name.
Wow.
And if you want to find a person not to mess with, that would be Tim Horvat. I got a chance to talk to Bo a couple weeks back, pre everything going on with the Canucks, but it was you got a chance to chat with him a little bit about a few aspects of his career and everything like that. So
he's now a dad.
He is now a dad, which just makes
playing well.
Here's my favorite aspect, and Pete always says it to me multiple times, and I kind of would snicker under my breath periodically. And when Bo Horvat posted that he was a dad, I felt old.
It's the way life goes, right? It's,
but he's playing
get
well.
used to it. Oh, is he ever?
And it couldn't happen to a better kid. It really couldn't.
Absolutely.
He was a great, and he scored that big goal against Barrie with less than a second to go to give London the OHL championship. And the other night against Toronto, he got the first of 3 and the third of 3 for his club, the Vancouver club, and they beat Toronto in overtime.
You could see from an early aspect, though, he was going to be we knew he was going to be good from an early aspect, but you could tell that he was that leader, that captain, that kind of mentality. Yeah. I remember Pete during a show one night, I think somebody called and asked us about who would be a better NHLer, Max Domi or Bo Horvat, and I think I came back quick with a Bo Horvat response. I believe that was the night I first got reprimanded by management from the London Knights, but
well, look, and when Vancouver drafted,
right.
remember when Vancouver drafted Bo, there was not, they traded the goaltender to New Jersey, Schneider, and a lot of Vancouver fans weren't happy with that. They liked the young goaltender, and I don't know. You just drafted your captain.
What are they saying now?
Now they, I think, like that trade. It was.
I think who was that goalie that who was that goalie that we lost? Yeah, we'll take our captain. He's
no. Bo is Patrice Bergeron 2.0. I mean, he's just got everything, and he might even work his way into a Team Canada Olympic spot. Who knows? Wouldn't be the worst choice. Wouldn't be the worst choice in the world.
Wouldn't be the worst choice at all.
No, anyway, with the cancellation of the Memorial Cup, and that kind of started the online Twitter general chatter of what would have been sort of thing. And Jim, I know you've been around the team the last number of years, traveling and so on and so forth. How good would this Knights team would have been? Because I know there was even a little bit of chatter of how good they have been. I think I want to say it might have been Ryan Pyatt's article in the Free Press kind of said potentially could have had a Memorial Cup team that didn't actually happen, because you look at how good they would have been, Brochu and Net and that kind of thing. And then, McMichaels and all those kind of names that would have went with it. How good would this team have been? And then I've got a second question afterwards.
Well, like most years, I think Mark and Dale are able to put a team together that knocks on the door, and with a break here and there, and with a return of the right player, and maybe a trade at the deadline, you're right there. I think they would have been. I think I'm not saying other teams wouldn't have been, but I think Trevor Whiffen, I think, was quoted in that Ryan Pyatt article as saying, we potentially, and it's true. I think they would have been right there.
They could have been in
the hunt anyway.
Yep.
Nothing's guaranteed.
When the CHL rankings first came out, weren't they ranked 5th? I think they were. I think the London Knights were ranked 5th.
I didn't even see that they even came out with one, but and so they were right there with the right set of circumstances and good health, and you're always going to rely on the NHL to return. And McMichael, do we know that he wasn't going to be up? Don't know. It's tough to say, but everything falling into place, I think they would have been right there. In the top, and probably like most years. And I think as we carry on into the next year, there's a lot more uncertainty about this, but I think the way they've accumulated some talent over the last few years, I think the number of picks would suggest that they will be so. It will be so again. They will be knocking on the door. I don't think Mark and Dale rest too easily, even during a pandemic. I think they're working away at it and trying to recruit. They had, by all accounts, a really good draft, and were able to secure the likes of again, surprised he was there, the defenseman Isaiah George or Crane and some of the Sim and some of the young talent. And if Nazar shows up, wow, they could be right back there again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
And quickly.
And on that flip side of it, who's the first Knight taken in the NHL draft this year?
Logan Mailloux, I think, because he's interestingly, again, it's going to be such a all over the place draft, but Logan on Mark Edwards hockeyprospect.com, he's got him 15th. This is overall. And that's, Bob McKenzie had him 42nd or 43rd on his most recent. So that's the high second round. I think it'll be Logan Mayu.
He's the kid that played in Sweden, isn't he? He played in Sweden.
Yeah. From Windsor, Essex, and originally went to play for Paul Coffey at the Marlies in his midget year, and Knights got him in the second round. He had a great year, as you know, Ryan, with the Nationals, and the way the Knights developed him and really let him grow into that all-round role. He was so confident with the puck by the end of it. He's 6'3" and can generate offense. So who knows how high he'll go.
He's Pete's favorite position, an offensive defenseman.
Who also
can
hit. He can hit a ton. I mean, he's a big, strong young man too. And when he decides to lock you down behind the net, pin you against the board, you're not getting away. So he's got that NHL style of body and skill set.
And that first year or two, especially, it's one of those situations where if he went to the OHL as a 16-year-old, he might have been the seventh defenseman, might have been the extra one. He probably would have sat out a bunch. He goes and plays Junior B for the year. The Nationals could see what they had from an early aspect. I think it was first or second game. He lights up a shot and scores. I think he had a goal and 2 assists in like the first couple games, sort of thing. And you're kind of going, okay, you look at him, just intimidation factor, as you say, 6'3", a big body, that kind of thing. Could skate, but then like to jump up in the rush, sort of thing. But then at the same point, it looked like he got that extra discipline angle, and you could tell throughout the season that he went from, offensive defenseman, likes to score, jumps up in the rush. It had been part of that, aspect from the minor midgets perspective, but now all of a sudden gets that. Here's how you have to play when there's 17 to 20-year-olds as well, on top of your own age bracket, sort of thing. By the end of the year, you could basically see that this was, where he was going to go. At that aspect, I think even at the end of the Junior B season, I don't know if a lot of people were saying, we think he might be in the first or second round of the NHL draft. It was kind of a consensus of, well, we know he's going to go play for the Knights next year. Now everything put into place, then he did himself some favors, I think, by making that decision to go over to Europe and play hockey and that kind of thing, and get that extra eyeballs and those kind of things. So even talking to scouts, that's the only way they've been able to watch a hockey game, especially for development talent, is watching live streams of European hockey and that kind of thing. And to be able to see somebody like that kind of add to that and kind of see how they fit with those that next echelon of body types, did him a world of favors. And now look what it's going to do for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, Markendale have got some equity among NHL teams and scouts. They know that, look, if we take this guy, we're going to be able to have him work with Markendale, which he already has done, even though he didn't play that many games. I think 4 or 5 with London the year before. They work him out every day. He's at practice. He's getting the sort of instruction at a high level. And in both Junior B and in the OHL, they were monitoring him. They were keeping a close eye on him, and so I think a lot of I think this young guy is going to be a really good professional defenseman, and that skill set is pretty intriguing. And I think 15 is high to some, but wouldn't be surprised in this really odd year for somebody just to come out of the blue and just say, look, we got our list. We think we believe in this kid, and we don't have to worry about him for 3 years anyway. So let's take the potential and look at the package that you're being, that your size, skill, and I think it'll be probably somewhere between 15 maybe and 42. So mid first, late first. That's still that's great for him. Like you say, Brian, going to Sweden was probably the best thing for him.
And then, how confident are we of a October start to the OHL season?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Pete will have
Opened
his
the can
second vaccine by
about
then.
Three-quarters of an hour in.
I don't know with what's happened recently. Who's to say? Who's to say? I still think it's going to be when we get there, we'll know a lot better. We'll see what the COVID situation is like, and it's all based on that, on the health of the player and the community. I give Dave a lot of credit. Dave wanted to play, but he first of all he looked after the health of the players. We cannot put them in jeopardy, and he did not. And I congratulate him for that because, well, that's just the way he thinks. He's not going to take any chances on a kid's health. So to answer your question, ask me the same thing in October.
Don't worry, I will.
You okay?
I think we'll be back. I think it's not looking. Look, we've had a tough week on the COVID front, but I think it's there's a lot more reason with vaccine rollout. I think there's a lot more reason to be optimistic now, and I think in about a month it's going to look, which is only
a month away.
A month away, middle of May, right? So we've still got 3 months till September. You know, I think it's going to take a quick turn in the next month as the vaccine rollout intensifies, and I think I'm looking at the drop of the puck and a 68 game schedule in late September, maybe early October, if they have to push it back. But I'm looking at it starting. How, you know, I'm just hoping fans can enjoy it. You know, maybe there'll be some limits on crowd sizes, or there'll have to be some sort of proof of the vaccine. I don't know, but 9,000 in there. We'll see if 9,000 can do that.
I hope you're right, Jimmy. I hope you're right.
I think we're going. I think we're going to be.
If it happens, I think it will be probably the loudest across the entire league that anybody is. You know, we've had a couple Memorial Cups here. We've had obviously a win, which. You two gentlemen, and actually, an early Ryan Robinson was actually in the building for that one, by the way.
05, yeah,
I was enjoying the summer work study position at Fanshawe College at that point.
Awesome.
But yeah, I don't know if it will match that level of excitement and noise, but I got to imagine that's going to be one of the most energy-filled buildings across the league, especially when that day finally comes.
Yep, it sure will.
A new appreciation. There will be, you know, once you're without something for that long and for these reasons, it'll be you're right. It'll be an emotional return for sure.
Well, Ryan, thanks very much. Or I should say, Jimmy, thanks very much for joining us on this occasion.
It's a lot of fun. I
enjoyed it very much.
Oh my goodness. Look at the time.
The time flies when you're having fun talking to friends.
Goodbye. Yeah,
you gotta promise I can come back.
Yeah,
well, you can come back anytime you want, Jimmy.
let's make it. We'll go by October or September or whenever the league starts.
Awesome.
I think what we'll do in that scenario, Pete, is we'll make that our first 4-member podcast. We'll get Jim, yourself, myself, and we'll get Mike Stubbs. We'll do a quad split, and we'll do an OHL season preview.
How much can people handle? I don't know. That just sounds like too much fun.
No, it's no such thing as too much fun when you get to talk to you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. It's been a lot of fun and a pleasure.
And the same.
Takes us back to our London Tiger days.
Yes. They're selling the T-shirts again, and
they're selling them. I saw the TV story.
Awesome. Yeah,
you betcha.
Awesome.
And they picked up our play-by-play when the kid made the final out in 1982, I think it was, or 92.
Yeah,
that they won the Eastern League Championship that year, and I remember talking to Joe McDonald, the Detroit Tiger head of their minor leagues, and he said, "Oh, I was proud of those kids. They really came through for us." And Travis Fryman went on to play in the major leagues.
And I remember, Pete, I have to apologize, missing a game on May 14th, 1989, when my son was born. And you guys, remember that? You and Mickey were following along. I think it was a blowout game. It wasn't much of a game that I missed on a Sunday afternoon. And my son was born, and you guys were monitoring the baby watch, and are on the air live. He still gets comments about that. I remember when you were born.
Was
Pete
that
might-
Austin?
Yeah.
Austin.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
that Austin, who is now
yeah.
married to my wife's cousin?
Yes,
Oh, really?
exactly.
Oh, well.
Funny how small the world is, right?
It
Pete,
is.
Pete announced that on there. I think everybody, Pete was one of the first to know, I think, and let everybody else know.
I knew you wouldn't mind, Jim. I knew you wouldn't.
No, it was awesome.
Gentlemen,
So
this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for this, and we will book in once we find out when an OHL season is actually going to happen. We'll get that that follow-up edition to actually see. We'll talk a little bit about the summer that was and the season that hopefully will be returning us back to whatever the new normal looks like.
Looking forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.